Okay. Dear friends and distinguished guests, I am honored to commence the official ceremony of unveiling Boris Nemtsov Plaza. I am Natalia Arno, president of the Free Russia Foundation, and we are co-organizing this event with the Boris Nemtsov Foundation for Freedom. Let me thank you all for coming here today to commemorate a prominent Russian who was murdered steps from the Kremlin while fighting for freedom. Today, we are witnessing a truly historic event, as this is the first official memorial for Boris Nemtsov in the world. Our special thanks to the DC Council for their unanimous support of Boris Nemtsov Plaza, for their wisdom in seeing the value of this memorial. To the DC Council, the DOT and MPD for helping us to organize this event. And to many elected and government officials here today for honoring the life of a man who many of us viewed as the soul of the Russian pro-democracy movement. While all of you deserve our heartfelt thank yous, I am sure all of us would agree that we wish we never had a reason for this memorial and Boris Nemtsov was still with us. We will start the ceremony by speeches by Vladimir Karamurza, the main person why it's all happening today, following by Zhana Nemtsova, Boris Nemtsov's daughter, and our distinguished guests. Since members of Congress have to be back to the Hill for voting, we will pause our speeches and we have our ceremony of unveiling the Boris Nemtsov Plaza sign. It will be done by a very special guest. This will be a great time for the members of the press to take photos or film the unveiling. After that, we will continue with our speeches. And as a reminder, we have this place only until 1:30 p.m. Now let me introduce Vladimir Karamurza, a close friend and colleague of Boris Nemtsov, and a board member of Boris Nemtsov Foundation for Freedom. As we all know, Vladimir's vision, tireless efforts, and persuasiveness is a big reason why we are here today, unveiling this memorial to a fallen hero. Vladimir, thank you for making it happen.
Natalia, and thank you for moving mountains to make this ceremony possible and for everything you have done to help with the organization. And thank you everyone who is here today. One day, about 7 or 8 years ago, Boris and I were driving down the street, down Wisconsin Avenue, right past our embassy. And I asked him if he'd ever been inside it. And he said, yes, I have. And we actually opened this embassy together with Boris Yeltsin. I forgot all about it, and then much later, when I was making a film about him, I decided to go back and find out more about that episode. The year was 1994. Boris was governor of the Nizhny Novgorod region, and he was part of the official Russian delegation for President Yeltsin's state visit to the U.S. And when Yeltsin hosted President Bill Clinton for dinner to mark the official unveiling of the new Russian embassy in Washington, this building behind me, he pointed at Boris and said, keep an eye on this young man. One day, he will be president of Russia. Russian history has a funny way of making the wrong turns. Boris Nemtsov did not become president, but he did become something very, very important. To many people in our country and throughout the world, he became the face and the embodiment of a very different Russia from the one represented by the current regime. A freer, more democratic, more hopeful Russia. A Russia that would respect its own people and that would live at peace with its neighbors. That is a Russia Boris Nemtsov wanted to see, and that is a Russia he dedicated his life to fighting for. Boris didn't care much about formalities. Those of us who knew him closely think that he's probably quite amused where he is now, looking at what we're doing here today. He would not have cared much for a plaque or a sign or a street name. The best possible tribute to him and to his legacy will be a free and democratic Russia, and that day will come. But what we're doing here today is important for many people in our country. Because you can kill a human being, but you cannot kill what he stood for. You cannot kill his memory. The Russian authorities have been trying. For 3 years, they blocked all public initiatives and petitions for any kind of official commemoration of Boris Nemtsov in Russia. Private signs installed by citizens have been removed, and flowers that Muscovites continue to bring on that bridge where he was killed are repeatedly stolen by the Moscow municipal services. It was being made abundantly clear to us that we would not be allowed to honor a Russian statesman in Russia. So we are deeply grateful to leaders here in Washington, D.C., who have stepped in to do what we could not, and who have led the way for this first official commemoration of Boris Nemtsov anywhere in the world, here, steps away from the Russian embassy he once helped to unveil. I want to thank in particular the congressional supporters of this initiative: Senator Rubio, Senator Coons, Senator Wicker, Senator Johnson, Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, and Representative Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. They're all here with us today. I want to thank Senator John McCain, who could not be with us, but who is with us in his heart. And I want to express a special gratitude to the leaders of the Council of the District of Columbia, who have actually made this happen by enacting legislation. And I want to say a special thank you to the chairman of the council, Phil Mendelson, and council member for Ward 3, the ward where we are all standing right now, Mary Che. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you. And you have done something even more. And you have done something even more than to commemorate Boris Nemtsov in Washington. 4 days ago, the mayor of Moscow, Sergei Sobyanin, has announced that after 3 years of blocking and rejecting and vetoing any kind of public initiative for an official commemoration, the Moscow city government will be reversing its position and will allow the installation of a memorial plaque on the apartment building on Malaya Ardinka Street, where Boris lived. They have apparently realized how it looks when the US capital city is commemorating a Russian statesman, while the Russian capital is refusing to do so. So on this day, I want to thank you one more time. In 1984, the authorities here in Washington, D.C. renamed a portion of the street in front of what was then the Soviet Embassy on 16th Street Northwest as Sakharov Plaza, in honor of the great Russian dissident, Andrei Sakharov. As you can imagine, the Soviet government was not pleased. 7 years later, there was a Sakharov Avenue in Moscow, and there was no longer a Soviet government. To me, as a Russian citizen, there can be nothing more patriotic than to name a street in front of the Russian embassy after a Russian statesman. And whatever the people in the Kremlin think of this now, I know that one day the Russian state will be proud that our embassy in Washington is standing on a street that is named after Boris Nemtsov. And I want now to introduce and pass the microphone to the daughter of Boris Nemtsov and the founder of the Boris Nemtsov Foundation for Freedom that was established to continue his work and to honor his legacy, Zhana Nemtsova.
Chairman Mendelson, Council Member Chair, Senator Rubio, Senator Coons, Senator Wicker, Senator Johnson, Congresswoman Ros-Lehtinen, Congresswoman Holmes Norton, Vladimir, Natalia. On behalf of my family today, and my mother is here today as well, I want to thank you for making this happen. For the first time, my father's name is commemorated on an official level. From now on, the block in front of the Russian embassy bears the name Boris Nemtsov Plaza. It has been 3 years since my father was gunned down on Большой Москворецкий Bridge, in front of the Kremlin walls. And two struggles have been unfolding since then. One, to ensure full and transparent investigation. We now cannot win this struggle, but we are not giving up. The other struggle is to commemorate my father. For 3 years, volunteers on the spot of my father's assassination have been guarding a makeshift memorial made of candles and flowers. And they are there only for one reason. The state is trying to destroy this memorial. The Bridges Maintenance Agency and the pro-Kremlin nationalistic movement SERB have dismantled this memorial for more than 70 times. But they failed. This is a genuine will of the Russian people to keep good memory of my father. And despite severe propaganda that we now have in Russia, millions of Russians are true to my father's memory, and they are not indifferent to what happened to him. We in Russia are very proud that we had Boris Nemtsov. He firmly believed in democratic values, and he was true to his convictions. It wasn't a mere decoration for him. As a statesperson, he acted on these democratic values, no matter what position he held. He was governor of the Nizhny Novgorod region, and many people who worked then back in Nizhny Novgorod are here today, and I'm very proud that they managed to come here. He was the member of the Russian government, and he was a member of the Russian Duma. I'm always asked how it feels like to be in the shadow of my father's name and legacy. And I must say today that I'm proud to be my father's daughter. And after his tragic death, I regard it as my lifetime goal and commitment to stay true to my father's memory. Thank you very much.
I want to introduce our next speaker. A little more than a year ago, in January of 2017, I had a meeting in the office of Senator Rubio, and we discussed this idea with his office. And we agreed that we will try to do something, write something together. And I would help write this in February, in time for the second anniversary of his assassination. And then I went back to Moscow, and as some of you may know, I didn't help anyone do anything in February because I was lying in a coma in hospital after the poisoning. But Senator Rubio did it